What is happening, everybody? I hope you've had a good.
Back in like 2005, something like that.
I think my first con was so good. It's Friday Junior.
It's Friday, Junior. It's podcast day. It's payday.
And if you come out, do it like doesn't matter how you feel about the situation.
My name is Raph. We're always start the podcast because we just want to talk about it. We want to talk about music. We'll just share those stories and experience. This is my co-host Carl, aka the Beer Buddy. He is hailing you.
This sort of weird era where they're sort of right in that post-grunge.
Look, you're fighting the good fight in today's world. My war was fought 40 years ago, really.
We are the two dudes who talk music, and we are here. Hey, I'm too quick on that air horn button, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, that is amazing. I love it. You're second on the dude. Fantastic.
What is happening, fellas? Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We really, really appreciate that. On this, well, it's not going to be going out on a Sunday, but on this chilled out Sunday afternoon, closing out a long weekend. Thank you very much for giving up some of your long weekend to sit around with us fucking clowns and have a bit of a chat.
Of course.
Our
Favourite clowns.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, to tell you
So-
what, that video is pretty banging. Straight off the bat.
That, absolutely.
Oh,
But look, for a visualizer, it was very cool. It did. I feel like more went into that than most visualizers that you would get that just kind of like repeat a short loop over and over again or whatever.
Yeah.
That felt almost like a video for the song in a sense, much more than just a visualizer.
Well, that's kind of the thinking behind it. Is we were like, we want people to actually watch it because, like, with the hypnosis visualizer, it was definitely like a sort of put that on in the background, and that's sort of just a video to go with it. Whereas the psychotic one, we wanted something more elaborate that's actually like cool to look at and has a bit of a. I mean, narrative is a bit of a stretch, but it.
Well,
There's a timeline there.
It ebbed and flowed with the song. It reacted to the song, and even I mean, I can see the sense of an implied narrative or story within what was there. Like if you can look for it and you'll see it. Basically, is
Yeah.
the thing. But like my God, that song is fucking heavy.
Yeah.
Like
it is.
we had, what was it when we had we did the let's say the Ghost Complex one, the Small Gods one a couple months ago, and we were like, y'all had no right to be that heavy, and you guys came along, then just like laid the smack down with that one, with your new one, Psychotic. Fucking hell, like that drop in the breakdown.
I gotta give
perfect.
all that to Rowan.
It's
Rowan,
a good
like,
song. I love it.
yeah, Rowan wrote that from start to finish. There's probably like, what, like 8, 9, maybe even 10 different versions of it in our Google Drive or something. It's just
Oh,
Rowan
there's
like
so many different versions.
going back and restarting, and like putting it back together and like, yeah, that song, like all of them were primarily him, but that song is Rowan's baby, and that song was the one that changed the least, if at all, when we took it into the studio. Like some songs went under some pretty dramatic changes when we took them to our producer Nat. That one barely changed at all, just because I think Rowan had such a clear vision for what he wanted it to be, at least instrumentally.
It just felt right because, like, I wouldn't say it's 100% through composed. So, like, songs like that don't have choruses and stuff like that. It's because it definitely has choruses based off like the main chorusy riff, the very chromatic thing. But I like how it kind of doesn't hang around. The song doesn't hang around. It moves. It doesn't.
Yes.
You got to keep up with it.
Yeah, for anyone watching, through composed means a song has no repeating sections.
Whoa.
In case there aren't people watching this who know this, because I watched
Exactly.
it. I watched back our interview last time, and one of my friends was like, "What the fuck does through composed mean?" I was like, yeah, probably should have clarified that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are. I don't know. That song was just. I think I mean, for me, it's easy to say it came together easy, but I did fuck all when it comes to writing it. I just did the vocals and the lyrics, and all the instrumental was Rowan and Nat sort of revamped some of the synth textures and stuff, but that's about as much as Nat touched it. Um, but yeah, Rowan, do you want to go into
very much. So it's very much like a Rowan thing.
Yeah.
Like start to
So
finish.
yeah,
Do
that
you want to
song
go
was
into how you wrote that?
interesting. Yeah, I like to take inspiration from anywhere from writing because I have mad like writer's block, and when I'm not in the mood, I just cannot write anything. But that main riff and like the intro like synth that leads up as it comes into the main riff, that is actually a stock synth sound from the synth Ana. But I think I think you get it in like the Slate bundle. It's just one of those ones where like it's like an arpeggiator kind of thing. You just push and hold the note, and it just like played that melody, and I was like, yeah, that's really cool. So I kind of just like transposed it to what I wanted, or put it on the key that I wanted, sorry, and then figured out what it was on guitar, and then just wrote a riff around that. That's how that whole song came out to be. It went through some weird stages of having some odd sections here and there, but that bass break in the middle where we have David's feature, which by the way is like a masterpiece. David fucking nailed it.
The highlight of the song, yeah.
That bass break has been like there the whole time in the song because I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Well, you need dynamics, right? Like that's the thing we talk about so much in songwriting, and like yes, it's great to have heavy songs, and it's great when you get a very intense song, right? But if you've got a song that's up here for the whole duration of the song, it's not as impactful as if it pulls back a little bit and then comes in stronger again.
Exactly.
Like we had, one of our
100%.
reactions that we did the other week, right? We had a song where it was like, yeah, it was like a great song, but it was just kind of up here the whole time, and it had about three riffs that it just repeated and went back to the whole time. And I'm like, hey, it's cool, and I'm really digging it, but it just kind of didn't go anywhere. There was no journey or travel to it. And again, sometimes you're in the mood for that, sometimes you like that, but more often than not, I think even without realizing it, most people want music that has a dynamic range in it, both audio wise and in terms of the vibes and emotions that it invokes in people.
Oh, bro, and that's such
definitely.
an important thing that you bring up is like a lot of people tend to be under the impression, whereas if you're just full on your blast beats and tremolo picking the whole song, that's what heavy is, and that if you take a moment to chill out, that's, you can be chill and still be heavy. If you like, as you pointed out in your reaction, you're like, that bass sounds like so fucking aggressive, and like the really like dark synths underneath it and David's vocal on top of it. Like, just because the dynamic has shifted doesn't mean that the mood has changed. And especially I think David's lyrics and just vocal part of him having that like held back sort of screaming through your teeth part sort of like really helps enhance that there is still aggression here and there is more on its way. Whereas, so I think Psychotic is heavy in like sort of every sense of the word, like the lyrics, the the vocals, the instrumental, and like, yeah, I mean, you could say a lot of songs that are like screaming and blast beats throughout the whole thing are probably more heavy, but I think there's, as you guys sort of pointed out, those sort of dark synth textures that are under every single bit of that song pretty much sort of add this really sort of ominous atmosphere to the entire song that just, it's not only just, the song's brutal and the song's aggressive, but there's this dark atmosphere through the whole thing that just enhances that like tenfold.
It's emotionally heavy while being musically heavy at the same time.
It's like that nothing more track I showed you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
like
what I mean?
very.
It's like, and so many other bands, I get, certain that certain gatekeeper kind of thing where people are just like, oh, it's got this in it, it's not heavy, you can't, it's just not heavy. You can't consider that metal. That's bullshit. I hate that. It's just a different recipe to their metal. That's all it is.
Precisely. I mean, I just look at a lot of those bands, a lot of the gatekeepers that want to talk about like, you know, like thrash or whatever. Like if it's not thrash, it's not heavy to them, right? And they'll talk about bands like Slipknot and say, "Oh, Slipknot's not heavy." I'm like, what
I've
universe?
never understood that.
I
Like,
mean, I
how
just
can you listen to people equal shit and be like, not heavy?
yeah, exactly. And I just kind of
Oh, he sings in it.
Yeah.
yeah. So
Sings it.
but it's one of those it's just one of those things where like, you know, I say this ad nauseum. I think that you know the metal that's coming out of Australia at the moment, especially, is some of the best that I think it's ever been, and the
Definitely.
talent and the bands that we're seeing, like you know, the kind of stuff that's being put out, and you guys are included in this, is just it's levels ahead of so much else that's out there,
Thanks.
and you see bands that like if so many bands, you know, if you could just transplant them and have them be in America, yeah, where the big market is, right?
Yeah.
If you could just pick them up and put them in there and have the support structures that other bands at their level would have, like
Mm.
they would excel so much more in terms of the reach and the
Yeah.
popularity. And it's just one of those things of being trapped in a small market over here that is kind of the very limiting. But I think at the same time, that is also a drive for a lot of because a lot of bands over here go, yeah, we want to take this as far as we can, but we know we're probably never going to make it in, you know, into that sense. So
Yeah.
we're just literally just going to have the most fun that we can and make the best music that we can, and that there's a almost a more of a purity in that sense to the art of it, in
Yeah.
that it's like, you know, we're not going to do something because we want to try and get on the ride and get famous from it. So
They're just doing it
we're not
because
going to do
they enjoy
certain
it.
things. Yeah, we're not going to do certain things that we, you know, if we're like, okay, if we change what we're doing to do this, we can make it or get famous on it and get rich and famous. It's like, no, we're doing a niche genre in a small market. We know that that's the odds of that happening are so slim that there's no point in not no point in trying for it, but there's no point in quote unquote selling out to try and
Mm.
change, you know, and changing our vision from what we want to do artistically to try and reach that goal. So we're just going to stick to what we want to do artistically, and that has produced, in my mind, some of the best metal going in the world right now, and it's
Yeah, and
right here.
with
I'd agree
here's
with
the
that.
thing, man, is
100%.
100%.
yeah, like as we've seen, I think Australia and in particular Sydney and Brisbane have the best scene in the world for modern heavy music. And that's something that we're extremely fortunate to be part of because, like, I mean, Sydney as a city isn't as kind to everyone as it is to the heavy music scene. I've got friends who play in like indie bands and stuff that really, really struggle because there's just not really a scene for it in Sydney. But in terms of the heavy music, like not only the quality of bands that are coming out, like half the heavy bands I listen to are just friends, and it's so cool that like I have some of my favorite bands are coming out, you know, for example, like Weightless and Singe and Broken Earth, you know, bands like these are just bands that I really genuinely enjoy listening to and watching live and playing with. And it's also like we've developed a reputation for it. Like, I remember, I don't know if he still does it, but Nick Nocturnal was doing live streams where he would react to sort of underground bands. And he reacted to, I want to say it was either Hypnosis or Deadbeat, and it was like way down on the list. And someone mentioned that we were Australian, and he's like, "Fuck it, they're Australian. I'll listen to them now." Like, and also if you watch our reaction to, I think again Hypnosis by I don't think they do reactions anymore, but True Shot. They're like, oh, these guys are Australian, so I've got higher expectations for. Like, we've developed a reputation for being the best in the game, at least in terms of like modern metalcore and modern deathcore. So yeah, and the scene's just getting better and better. I mean, you're seeing it get bigger before your eyes. You know, Bring Me the Horizon collabing with Ed Sheeran, Bad Omens collabing with Poppy, and the sort of like hyper pop and like really aggressive metalcore being combined flawlessly.
You look at the rise
North,
of Japanese metal at the moment as well.
Japanese metal's
and
popping
like
off.
Yeah, it is.
And you know what else? North Lane doing a fucking esports soundtrack. Fucking Slipknot.
Oh,
Slipknot on you know, doing a soundtrack for The Boys, the Amazon series. Like it's just getting bigger and bigger and breaking into the mainstream. And there's probably 50 other collaborators. Alpha Wolf and Ice-T, dude. Like,
Who
That's
was it
such
that
a
did,
random one.
was it Megan the Stallion, Megan Thee
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stallion
There you
Yeah.
go.
with with Spirit Box? Like that was a crazy kind of mashup that they had, or
So
collaboration that they
random.
did there. Like yeah, some of there's a lot of
what's the way of the world now?
mainstream
Collaborations where it's
attention.
at.
Yeah, a lot of mainstream attention is turning back
To
towards rock and metal.
to be quite honest, like I have loving the Bring Me the Horizon collaborations, especially the ones with Lil Uzi Vert. I reckon that is sick.
That's
Like,
mad.
they're
I haven't,
absolutely
I haven't
nailing it.
seen that.
Oh, they've done 2 songs. One
Yeah.
was released
Check it
under
out.
Bring Me, one was released under Lil Uzi Vert. I think
The
it's
what- the
Amen
Bring Me
and,
one
and
was with-
Werewolf.
Yeah,
Amen
the
was
Bring Me
was-
one was with like 3 other artists, though, wasn't it?
There's a bunch of others as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, but like that's the thing though. Like I feel like it's definitely bringing those bands or like the not those bands, but I'm saying like the genre into the eye of everyone else, and showing as well that it's accessible, because it's not like when people think of heavy metal, they think, oh, screaming, blah blah blah, oh, you can't hear anything, but it was like, yeah, but you don't actually, if you actually listen to it properly, and that's what these kind of bigger bands that are collaborating are doing.
And again, like
That's
this
mad.
is something again that I think I've mentioned in the past, is a lot of the time when people that are into a lot of rap and hip hop stuff,
Yep.
a lot of the time when like they might not know metal because they've just never been exposed to it, right? They just never
Yeah.
bothered listening to it. A lot of them, when you show them metal, they're like they love it, like they get it.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
because a lot of rap is aggressive in its own right.
Exactly. It's that's what, and I've said it before, and it's just a very broad generalization, but I think there is a degree of truth to it, that
Yep.
rap and hip hop is the music of came from disaffected people of color and minorities, things like that, whereas a lot of metal and rock music. And I know that there is elements of rock and metal that do go back into, like back in sort of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, dates back into
Like
like
blues
blues
and
and a lot of
stuff.
thing. But there's a lot of what metal is now comes from disaffected white youth
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And there's I'm not saying those are the sole sources of those, by the way, just in case anyone
Yeah.
watching wants to put me on blast for that. I'm not
But
saying
yeah,
that the sole
there is-
sources for
Hey,
it.
hey. I'll just
In
call it as
major
I see
ways,
it.
it's culturally those have kind of become the sources of disaffected white youth generally will turn to rock and metal, while disaffected youth from minorities and people of color will usually turn to like rap and hip hop sort of for their thing. And there's the same emotions behind a lot of it, just being expressed differently, like genre wise. So and there's an understanding there. Like, you know, you play that for like you see a lot of rappers, they'll listen to metal and rock stuff for the first time and they'll be like, I get that feeling. You know,
Yeah.
I understand that feeling, and they can get on, like you say, the aggression of it and the vibe of it, and you know, hip hop and rap tends to have aggression in terms of lyrical content, flow style, and I guess the beat, the vibe of a beat. Whereas metal, it's often in, yes, lyrical content, but also like the aggressiveness of the riffs, the intensity of the riffs, and you know the drumming in there, and there's just so many. It's the same things expressed in slightly different ways, and I'm, I would love to see a study done into a lot of that to really see where the strongest connections are, because I
Yeah.
genuinely think, like, sometimes I feel like I'm crazy when I talk about it, but then other times I'm like, no, I know I'm onto something. I know I'm
Yeah.
onto something with it.
When you talk about it, I think you might be. It's like when you think about it, a lot of what we listen to, like our parents would have listened to like the Eagles and stuff like that, and naturally it was all rock, and we just the rebellious stage of that was harder rock.
Mm.
And you know what I mean? Like, and your parents are like, "What are you doing listening to that?" And it's like, "It's my music, Dad." But then you have a look at the the other cultures and stuff like that, where it'd be like R&B, and what would be the main sort of rebellion to R&B would be rap.
Mm.
That hard. I guess it's what we're exposed to is what flourishes
Yeah.
in that rebellious stage.
Yeah, for sure. And look, and then, we talked as well. I mean, you mentioned a bunch of, mainstream collaborations there. I think that's also another symptom of the resurgence of nu metal in popularity. Like, there's a lot of bands that are, coming up now that would fit into that nu metal category. And I do think rather than those bands sort of getting big at the moment, the way that's manifesting in the mainstream is you're getting bands, a lot of like metalcore bands and things like doing crossover stuff with mainstream, with rappers, and that
Yeah.
I feel is how it's expressing more in the mainstream part of the business, whereas a lot of the newer metal, like new metal bands that are coming up are still very much in that sort of, maybe not necessarily underground phase, but they're just still sort of breaking out of that
Yeah.
underground phase into the lower ends of the.
What I think the best part is, it's great to see it's getting done again. Like you got Ice-T with like had that body count thing. Cypress Hill had a little bit of a stint with a metal band. I can't remember what they were called, but they mucked around a little bit. They did some heavier stuff.
Yeah, they did Prophets of Rage, I think,
Prophets of
with
Rage,
the Rage
yeah,
Against the
yeah.
Machine
And
guys.
then they did something else apart from that. I think Sandog had something else. And he mucked around with the heavier stuff. I mean, there's you got the Anthrax and the Run DMC thing. It's
Yeah.
it's the collaboration thing is
It
such
dates
a good
back a long
space.
way.
It does, but and like we say on here so many times, everything just works in waves, and it hasn't been done for so long now. Everyone's just getting on the
Yeah,
train, and it's
I can't wait till I'm 60 and nu metal comes around again. I'll
oh
start out there with the jorts and the red cap and everything. I'll be out there like dancing around to Fred Durst, being up there at like 80 years old, doing trying to play break stuff at fucking 80.
yes, yes, and then you'll break your fucking hip that night.
Yeah, yeah. He'll be up there
Yeah.
doing break stuff. He'll do a jump at the end and he'll break his ankle on the landing or some shit.
Lyrics that weren't of a truer.
Yeah. Ollie, you're gonna say something? I saw you.
Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, like I think with all this crossover stuff, a lot of it from my perspective, getting these kind of two genres to cross over, like mainly rap and kind of the heaviest scene. It's normally always rap going into heavy things rather than heavy things going into rap. And one of the kind of main, I guess, examples that I remember was, when was it? I think it was 2 years ago, because Hottest 100 was yesterday. When Denzel Curry did his Bulls on Parade cover for Like a Version.
Yeah.
Got, I think it was number 4 in the Hottest 100 of that year. And through all that, I think a lot more people started seeing this crossover, like how, heavy kind of, I guess, acoustic driven music can work with rap. Same with like how a lot of people who like heavy music, metalcore, stuff like that also tend to kind of hang around with like Suicide Boys, Ghostman, stuff like that. And there's a lot of similarities between it. One of the ones I was thinking about just then was I'm sure most of you guys know Paleface Swiss. They're just like fuck you heavy, really. And a lot of their tracks, just kind of from a rhythm perspective, uses a whole bunch of like triplets and stuff like that in terms of like the flow and delivery. And a lot of that kind of gets traced back from all this rap stuff. Like, you see, Suicide Boys, Ghostman, things from like early kind of Wu-Tang where they're kind of sharing same stylistic features just with different articulations on everything, instead of just rapping, it could be, screaming it, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of it is still same, basically just with a different backing. And I think that relationship with these kind of two genres where a lot of it is, yeah, expressing this kind of oppressed, built up emotions. It seems to be like a kind of synonymous way of getting it all out from a lyrical perspective, and then it's just a matter of what you put behind it that kind of tells you what kind of genre you fit into.
Yeah.
And
Also, the line's so blurred these days anyway. Like, if you look at artists like Scarlord and Corpse, it's like, I mean, Corpse also just did a collab with Bring Me the Horizon, but you can see not only how heavily they're influenced by heavy music, but like they've started to incorporate it, and heavy artists have started to incorporate like trap beats. I mean, us even, for example, like trap beats and rap into their music. So there's a real sort of blending of worlds happening now.
All we
And
need
this
is that
is
one producer to be in there and be like with all the rappers, just be like, throw some distortion on that, and you got an album. And then when they get the metal heads on there, they go, throw a rapper on that, and you got an album.
well,
Yeah.
you've had bands that are out there doing crossover stuff for you know for decades now as well. I mean, you have a band like you look at someone like Head PE, who on any given album will have you know songs like metal songs, rock songs, punk songs, R&B, hip hop, rap, like elements of all of them across the whole album, as well as like you might have a fucking punk rock song right next to a rap song on the same album by the same group of people, and it just jumps, between styles like that, which is, I
Yeah.
mean, for one band
Skindred.
to do that way as well. Skindred's really good element of that as expression of that as well. Um, and while I'm not naming any mainstream bands here, like these are bands that have been grinding and hustling and doing that style for a long time. And I think a lot of people that are, and the thing is, like, we're musicians, right? So we experience it so differently from the average person. I think there's a lot of bands out there that are very popular in the musician community that are basically unknown outside of that. Um, which is wild to me because I can't get my brain to not think about it from
Mm.
that musical perspective, the position of someone who plays music. Um, sorry, but uh, yeah, I mean,
Punks
is
is all
there
about personality, man.
is
It's like
there any
they want
is it something that you guys have considered maybe doing, like trying to find someone in the Australian rap scene and maybe get them in, do a track with them for
Not that
something?
we've talked about, but we did do that kind of semi rap song on the first EP with Alex Anthony, who was in the Artisan at the time, but also Levide is his
Yeah, well,
artist
he's
name.
in Alera now. I saw
Oh
him
yeah, he's
last
in
night.
Hilaria. Yeah, I know. That's cool. I did see
Yeah.
that too. I'm glad he's
No,
back into it. He's a
Yeah, I ran
great
into him
vocalist.
last night, and I was like, "Whoa, hey, dude."
But yeah, he it was basically like a trap song. That whole song, we wanted an interlude thing, and we did like a trap beat, made that in the studio, and then we're like, oh yeah, this would be cool to get a rapper, and then thought about it, I was like, yeah, well, why don't we get Alex? And if you listen to the song, it's literally a rap song, just
Yep.
Yeah.
trappy like rap song kind of thing. So yeah,
Love
but
that.
we haven't we haven't like, I guess it's something we've thought about in the short term anyway. I guess it's something that could be cool, definitely.
Yeah.
because man,
We're not.
I could definitely see that. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not opposed to
that'd be fuck
collabs.
nasty.
Yeah, that would be good.
I mean, we just did one with David, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just not something that has really presented itself as of yet. I mean, I guess it did with Alex and with David, but in terms of like rapping, especially since the newer stuff isn't really, it doesn't really have that trap hip hop vibe.
Doesn't lend itself to that sort of style.
Yeah, it's and just because that new stuff doesn't have it doesn't mean we won't end up using it at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah, the newer stuff is more along the sort of, I guess,
And look,
more,
that's
and correct me if I'm wrong, Rowan, but more along the like EDM synth wavy cyberpunky sort of
Yeah, I
wave.
guess you could say that.
So it's kind
Yeah, I
of
guess
like
you could say that.
the way sort of Dante went a bit.
A little bit
Not that
heavier,
EDM.
not as EDM.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
no, nowhere near as. I wouldn't allow it. Jackson would love it, but I can't get around it too much.
Yeah. No,
See, no, look. As far as I'm concerned, they're trying to start a new genre, and it's heavy metal.
Well, they
house
are,
music.
like,
It's
it's
heavy metal
cool.
house music. It is like I dig it, but yeah,
yeah,
I just couldn't do it though.
But on the side, I mean, yeah, I mean, if it's up to me, it would just be synth. But no, but I think you know, on that topic, I think we do want to sort of be that band that is sort of like, you know, when you see new single by Northlane, you don't know if it's going to be something really vibey and melodic like Dante was, or something that kicks you around like a rag doll like my Asthma. So yeah, I think we'll always be reaching out to different, you know, just because this next EP sounds one way doesn't mean that's the direction we're going in.
Yeah, I mean, look, I that's something that I think is so important because I cannot tell you how many bands that I have been obsessed with because every album and one of the you know because every album's a bit different, every album's an evolution and a change to the sound and it brings something new, and then you know they hit 5, 6, 7 albums deep, and then all of a sudden they've kind of hit their formula, and then every album starts sounding. After that, you could just kind of reshuffle the songs into any order, and they'd all work as an album together, production-wise,
Yeah.
sonically, you know, musically, from a songwriter. They just and I kind of fall off them at that a lot of the time at
Yeah,
that point, and it's
'cause-
not, you know, like bands. I mean, I'm talking bands like Machine Head, Lamb of God, Disturbed. Even look, ask anyone that knows me. I am the biggest fucking Metallica mark you will ever fucking meet. And even the latest Metallica album, I was like, are they really doing this again? Like
Yeah,
it
that's sort of
sounds
how I
like
felt.
Eternal was a cool song, man. Lux
it
Eternal was
was.
good, but
It was. It was also a lie
Jeez.
because the rest of the album was nothing like that.
it was. It was a
but-
honeypot trap.
But you know, the fact that, and I think that that's so important for bands to keep experimenting like that. And I understand it's a risk, right? And I understand that for bands that have made it their career, it becomes very risky to experiment too much because you are putting your career on the line every time you do that. And this is where we go, if we to kind of circle back a little bit, we talk about, you know, bands in Australia being able to sort of go, well, it's not our main source of income. It's not our career as such. We have day jobs. We're trying to, you know, have this at least be self-sufficient, but we have day jobs. So we're just going to stick to our artistic vision and do what we want to do. And that allows for that experimentation as well. And you know, I think if you trace certain things that, you know, Aussie metal bands have done over the last 20 plus years, 20, 25 years, I think you will find there's some Aussie bands that were doing some of the trends before they were trends.
And I think we've had the reason, or part of the reason Australian bands tend to be a cut above the rest is we've had really good bands to look up to. I think Australia's generally quite a patriotic country, and when you've had bands like Parkway Drive, which, although I'm not a fan of the newer stuff, although props to them for experimenting and all that, no one was doing what they were doing 10 years ago when they got big. And you look at also Northlane, you know, one of the most, if not the most experimental metalcore band that's out there. And Amity Affliction, again, not a huge fan, but I can respect massively that they created their own sound of mixing metalcore and post-hardcore. You know, we've had these, and you know, there are a few other bands I could name that are sort of Polaris, there you go. Although Polaris are good, but they're not really doing anything new. They're just really good at what they do.
Yeah.
I think bands that are unique as, you know, Parkway, Amity, and Northlane have sort of paved the way for Australians to be like, we want to sound like that. We don't want to sound like these British bands or these American bands. We want to sound like these homegrown bands that are fucking killing it. And yeah, I think that that's a big reason Australian bands are standing out. And
Really good point.
I think it's, for us, we've been an experimental band since day one. You know, if you listen to songs like Apathy or Arc or a lot of this new stuff that's coming out, especially the last track that's going to be on the EP is super experimental. We've never been one to play it safe, and I think that would be a disservice to ourselves if we ever did. And you know, on our last interview we did with you guys, we were saying that we got some new tools under our belt, and we were going to move into a bit more of a melodic direction, which I was joking with Rowan about a couple of weeks ago, because he wrote like 3 new demos, and 2 of those were some of the heaviest shit I've ever heard come out of him. It was sort of just because, like, if you listen to Dark Matter and you listen to Mania and you listen to our new EP, again, bar maybe the last song of it, I sort of feel like we've done the heavy, genty stuff. And to keep doing it would be play it safe. And don't get me wrong, like screaming and breakdowns and riffs are always going to be a part of our music to some extent. Like that's not going anywhere. We love that shit. That is always going to be a part of the Ghost Complex identity. But it's like if we did another, I don't know if I can name drop. When do you reckon this interview is going to come out?
Next Thursday. It comes out
Thursday.
next Thursday.
This Thursday? Okay. Play it safe. Okay, this next EP, I can't remember where I was going with this. But yeah, if we did another one of this EP, it would just sound safe. And I think even like the scene's evolving so fast. I think by the time we put out this EP, everyone else would have caught up. So we're going to have to do something even different. And you know, and that's not to say after our next release, which may or may not be more melodic. I don't know yet. We've only got like a handful of vague demos. But after this next release, we might go back and do something super heavy because, like, there are 100 different ways to be heavy. There are 100 different ways to be melodic, and you can always mesh the two.
And you're not knuckled down to a contract or anything like that, which I mean is the beauty of it, and goes back to what Raph was saying, that because you don't have that, you can't muck around with your artistic ideas.
Yeah.
And that's perfect.
Yeah.
And what I like what you said there, and to go back to what Raph said as well about the bands sort of having a formula. Like, because I've fallen off all those bands Raph named, I loved at one point. Now I'm just like, it's the same album, it's the same album, it's the same album. And this is where I love the Deftones.
I mean,
so it's like you look at the Deftones, they have their core things that they will use. But they have their recipe base, but the flavors will always be different every time. And that's the best way to do it. You've got to have like your breakdowns, your things that you love to do that make Ghost Complex. But everything outside of that is fucking free reign.
Yeah. Like I can guarantee you anything we release, at least in the foreseeable future, will have, you know, aspects of riffs, synths, screaming, and breakdowns like that. Those are core parts of our identity. But how we use them and how we sort of build around them is going to change. And yeah, especially since, you know, talking about last time we talked about how I was getting vocal lessons and have sort of unlocked the ability to sing better. That's going to play more of a part in future stuff, just because it's a new tool that we can use, and also because it definitely restricted what we were doing before. Like I told you guys about how Mania was originally going to have a really melodic chorus, but we ended up going to what it is now, which I kind of think works better anyway. Just because Nat was like, I don't think your clean singing's there yet, and it's one thing I think our previous music has sort of been restricted in a little bit because of just my vocal limits. And now that I think I've expanded those, we can just do more with it.
100%. I mean, you're unlocking skill points, aren't you?
Yeah, dude.
So I wanted to ask as well, because I mean we pointed this out in the reaction to the song, and you guys confirmed that it was indeed correct. The synth layer in with the guitars.
Yep.
Was that like, was that just like straight up something that you wanted to do from the start on this one, or was that
So
something that came in later on? Like, how did that decision come about?
the synth layering of guitars is kind of something that we didn't do on the first EP, but Mania we definitely did do it because I think at that time we were a lot that came from our producer Nat, like the idea of doing that. We didn't really think of that at the time, but especially for Mania because it was so low tuning. The idea behind it was that you could have it. First off, it would fill the sound out more, like so it'd be way more like. It sounds
A
more
lot
like a
beefier.
chainsaw. Yeah,
Yes.
if you think about it, because you get more clarity of the note because there's more playing,
Yeah.
and the saw wave just cuts through.
Yeah.
So that was we did that on Mania, maybe not to the extent of this one, but then yeah, when I wrote, I did layer it with some basic sort bass synth. So the idea was to do that, but I just didn't execute it as well as our producer did. So the idea was always to do that. It's usually just it's kind of like the way we do it is kind of like you think of it like if you have a programmed bass, it's the same way we kind of go about doing it. Programming the bass synths is the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just adds that extra layer to make it a bit more full sound.
Yeah, and also
Definitely.
as you pointed out, it does make the guitar sound a bit more digitized, and
Yeah.
It's like a chainsaw. It's my favorite thing ever.
yeah, no, it adds that sort of futuristic element to a relatively primitive, primitive instrument. So yeah, I think it's sort of
Yeah, like, and I love that. I mean, and it's something that I know, like, some bands have been toying with for quite a long time now. You go back to, even going back to bands like Jerk back in the day, I believe used to do that with they used to have that synth layer, which was like exactly on what the guitar's doing, and like thickening that sound up, really generating, like, taking that sonic space that the guitar exists within, especially when if you've only got one guitar in the band as they did, you can, like, fill out
Spread it
that
out.
space just straight away, and it really adds to that big, like, wall of sound intensity that we often want so much out of our metal.
shout out
Um,
Wall of Sound.
yeah, and seeing bands, and look, I'm sure there's bands that have kind of carried that torch for on and off over the years as well, but it seems like a trend that's really coming back in the 2020s, and we're seeing a
Definitely,
lot more
yeah.
bands do that, as especially as we're heading in this direction of an extremely, when I say digital sounding, like, kind of guitar sort of sound, I'm not meaning in like that, like a thin old digital way how it used to. I'm talking about like the modern, like the modern metal guitar tone is really almost becoming that sound, right? Like with
Yeah.
that, and it's becoming like a defining
It's a
part of
deliberate
this
aesthetic.
decade. Yeah, like, I think in one of the, I think that will kind of, you can almost look at it as one of the defining aspects of this era, like this decade of metal,
Hmm.
is, and what people consider modern metal in the 2020s is going to be that guitar sound.
Yeah, the production
And
value's through the roof at the moment. For
and the prevalence of, you know, these like Axe effects, quad cortex, like Kemper rigs that allow, even in a live setting, for guitarists to just go bam straight into the PA system, that allows that sound to be used live as well, without having to fuck around with, and, like, without having to move amps around or use backline amps that might sound a little different at each gig. That you can just bam plug straight into that is, like, is helping to cement that as
Yeah.
the modern metal sound.
I think it's kind of like it's a bit of a double-edged sword, and I'm only
It
going to
is.
say it because anyone can go into, like, especially the quad cortex tone cloud and download someone's tone that sounds good from what they
Yep.
heard, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to sound good with that tone, because this is a lot of the reason why this EP, especially Psychotic, but the EP that you'll hear as well, it sounds so good is because Nat and I in the studio, we spent a long time. First off, I spent ages like learning how to play metal properly, and like pick properly because I didn't know how to, and he told me how to taught me how to do it. So there's that. It's like picking properly, playing the guitar properly, and then choosing the right like string gauges, pick sizes, and everything like that. Like in the low tune section of like the for psychotic for the breakdown, we went through, spent like 10 or so minutes just sampling different picks to try to find which one sounded the best for the tuning. Like it's just there's like that's the kind of thing, and that's what especially live as well. I try to make my tones as close to as possible as what I can because I don't get the tones from him when I use Sims Live. And then a lot of like when I play live is I have to try and play like I recorded it in the studio to get that reproduce that sound.
Yeah.
Do they make you pull out the tape so you don't accidentally hit the wrong notes?
Well,
Oh, dude, there was so much.
that is a secret. That is a very big secret. That's not even a secret. Everyone does it.
Everyone does that.
Well, you know what? Though? I saw that shit. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that shit. Right? Like, do you guys know? But there's like a video on TikTok of someone doing that, and they were, or like, actually, no, sorry, it was a band where they're in the studio and the guy's trying to play a bit, and it's got a lot of like stop start, and to help with the muting, there was a second person there, basically like
grabbing the strings,
muting the strings in between the bits, right? And they'd filmed that and posted it up as whatever, like, hey, we're in the studio doing this stuff, blah blah blah, and people were like ripping on him for doing it, and then but other people, so like there's a guy that I follow on TikTok, Greasy Will. He's like a big producer. He's done like tons of shit. He's worked, live production for shit like Coachella, as well as doing like, he's worked with all sorts of artists. And when people do like stupid shit in the studio, he'll rip on them. Or when people have shitty takes about recording music, he just roasts the fuck out of them because he's like, well, it's not going to affect my career. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm so good at my job. Like, and not in a bad way. You know what I mean? He's
not
like,
negative way.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not. Yes, I'm humble, but like, I also know that I am fucking amazing at my job, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm not just for, because it might upset some people. But yeah, it's like so he was doing, and they were like, literally everyone does this. He's like, people, you look at your biggest artists, the biggest artists out there will go into the studio and put tape over strings that they're not playing.
Yeah. This also isn't a new thing. Like,
just wait until they see the people that have someone standing there catching the cymbals for the drummers when they record live too.
Yes, I've seen that one too.
Also, like, I have a video on my phone of us recording Apathy, and it's both me and Nat holding the guitar while Rowan plays the leads, and as well as having tape over strings, because the lead from that, I mean, we just honestly can't reproduce that live. That part, I'm pretty sure, is on tracks, because it had to have not only multiple strips of tape, but me and Nat holding the guitar while Rowan tracked it bit by bit.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
in the studio, there are no rules. In the studio, there are no. There is no such thing as cheating in the studio. You do what you have to do to get it down. Going back literal decades, even to shit like Led Zeppelin, right? Like when you're going back to analog shit, when you slowed it down, it changed the pitch. So you know what they used to do to get those really, really high pitches on the songs? They would fucking slow down the tape and he would record it at the range that he could sing it. And then when it went back to normal speed on the tape, it went higher and it was still in pitch and it was above what just about anyone could reasonably actually do. And it's that's studio hacks and cheating has been the norm. And there's no such thing. There is no rules in the studio.
The whole idea is
down that you want. From a person in a movie, he didn't do that backflip. That was all in strings. Of course it was. He jumped 15 feet in the air. It's the same shit.
But it's also like you want the song to sound as good as it can. So like, why not do that?
Well, I feel like a lot of people, especially like in the indie scene, the ones that hate metal, they're very much for the vibe of the music and the feel, and especially with the artists, like they're the kind of people that like will go on and on and on to you about like, yeah, man, I just had a feeling about this song. It actually gave me good vibes and stuff, and they're the ones that like to record it and give the feel of it. And that's also when you get the songs that kind of come out and they're just like, what the fuck is happening? I don't understand this. Yeah. But like, like, I don't really care, because like at the end of the day, like I want it to sound like perfect. Like I don't even listen to old school like metal and stuff because I think the production kind of sucks. So like,
Well, I mean,
I just-
it
I
does.
just- it just
But
sounds so
that's
much
what we
better if you
love
just
about it.
yeah, we just spent
But
like
it's
years
also
on
like-
Go and listen to that first Slipknot album. The production is abysmal.
Oh, it's terrible.
sounds
But here's the thing: like, if you all want to get in a room and record it in one take, cool. No one's stopping you from doing that.
Just be
But like,
prepared for the
don't
criticism that
shit on.
comes along with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's like, don't shit on people who are trying to make the song sound as perfect as they can in the studio, because ultimately, I will be very surprised if, like, for example, our song turns out with shittier production than a band that has gone in, recorded the song in one take, and then fucked off. Like, the reality, and maybe that's the aesthetic they like, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But don't shit on other bands for doing their thing. Like,
Nah.
well, but
one
they,
of my-
even though
one of my. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like even still, like we like do tons and tons of takes on guitar, right, and then edit the crap out of them to time align them and everything. That's fine. That's nothing new though. I mean, Def Leppard been doing that ever since they started doing it. Like in the freaking 80s, the guy would
Yeah.
cut the tape and time align the guitars.
Yeah,
Like
this is what I mean, but it's not a new thing at all,
Yeah.
and people need
Yeah.
to
The
stop
technology just
whinging.
got better
but-
to do it. They can do it quicker.
Exactly,
it's more
accessible.
Yeah.
And this is what we mean. Like, this is what we talk about when we say things. Talk about, social media giving the layperson more access to the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Of every band, that people are seeing stuff they never used to see. Right? Like back in the day, even 20 years ago, really, if you wanted to see behind the scenes of how music was made, you had to go and buy like those behind the music DVDs or whatever, where they'd go into the history of an album, and they'd dig out all the tapes and go back over the recording process. Or if you got really lucky, the bands you liked would put out a documentary about the making of an album when in like a special
Yeah.
edition of that album or something.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Whereas nowadays it's literally like, social media bands are excited to be in the studio, so they can just immediately film it, share it, show everyone,
Yeah.
hey, we're in the studio doing this cool shit.
I
And
think
people
you just.
can. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna say you just got to do what works for you, man. Like
Yes.
I've got my best mate, John. He's in an indie band, and like he just refuses to use backing tracks and all that stuff and play to a click and stuff because to him, that's not what he likes, and that's fine. Like he's never shat on us for
Yeah.
using tracks or playing to a click or whatever, because he's like, you know what, I saw you guys live and you were fucking incredible, and like that's clearly what works for you. So who am I to shit on that if that's what works for you? Not the way I do it, not really a process I like, but whatever. And that's the mentality I think people need to have. If you see your artist recording with tape or time aligning stuff, just be like, well, they're doing that for a reason. They're doing that because they think it's going to turn out sounding good. And
Imagine how
more
many
times
people
than
would be
not,
really
it does.
butthurt if they found out the way Lars recorded the double kicks for Enter Sandman.
Well,
Do you know
Yeah,
that story?
No.
no, what did he do?
Do you know the story, Raph?
I'm
Supposedly,
probably
so you know
have heard
the.
it, but I can't recall it at the moment.
Oh, in one?
For one.
Yeah, whichever one. Yeah. No.
Yep.
Where was it, that double kick?
Yeah,
Maybe
it
was.
won.
Yeah. That double kick was recorded. Supposedly, this is all alleged. I have no proof of this. This is just what I've heard when I was in a studio many years ago. That it was
Allegedly.
just downshoot floor toms.
Actually,
I
I have heard of people using floor toms as kicks.
Downshoot
and like
floor
and
toms, and
yeah, I have
can't
heard of
kick
that.
that quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it that way.
Well, I mean,
That's
Ollie's in an indie band. So, what's your experience recording compared to how we would do it?
I mean, I couldn't.
Well,
tell you
he hasn't
the-
been with us.
The rainbow sunshine. in the
First of
background.
all, Jackson. I mean, more than just an indie band. So I play in 8 bands, right? And
What is it
some
with
of them-
drummers?
Typical drummer.
right? So with a lot of the kind of more, I guess not necessarily niche genres that I play, like kind of psych rock, funk, jazzy kind of things. A lot of it is I'm pretty much altering how I play live to fit the recording. So if there's some parts in certain song where I'm doing kind of more, not necessarily complex kick patterns, but ones where they are a lot more susceptible to kind of just getting fucked up from, like, I don't know, a velocity perspective or something. So they're not as consistent. I'll just take out a few hits here and there. Because I think the more kind of the more notes I'm playing as a drummer means I'd much rather take it piece by piece and comp it together rather than just like try and have this preset idea in my mind about getting like a perfect one take through everything. So the prog bands I play in, there's this end part in one of our songs where I'm just blasting and it's in 13/8, right? And pretty much I comped the recordings for that to basically have kick and cymbals as kind of the first take, and then literally instead of just one-handing my blasts on the snare, I'm literally just sitting there just like ba 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 ba, and it just creates like a better sounding track, and no one kind of gets shitty about it because it allows for the end result to come out a lot cleaner than if I do try and one take, say, like a 7-minute song and I fuck it up right at the end. So it makes it
It's all about the
a whole lot
vibe.
easier from my perspective because I'm not worrying about doing it perfect from start to end. I'm just basically taking my time with it, and parts that I have to fix up, I go back, fix up, retrack and comp it, do all that. And the simpler the genre, the less that kind of matters because you can one take all those. So with like those complex stuff, I didn't record any of it, but even just getting the tracks down, we have like isolated drum stems, which I pretty much go through, chart them out, and get them down through that, even if it's entirely different to how I play it live. Especially for like some of our older stuff, like Arc. I kind of use that as not
Like a
necessarily a
blueprint.
solo, but I know the structure and I just kind of fuck around with it as I'm going. I know what things I have to hit and when, but then all the other things I just get to mess around with. But then as you get more and more complex with your parts, like, with Psychotic and some of the newer stuff that's coming out, there's a lot less leeway that you can have in terms of kind of improv as you're playing live because there's just so much going on all the time that, especially in Psychotic, the only thing I can kind of mess around with is David's verse because it's just from a live sense, me and Jackson
Laptop.
and then bass, yeah, coming out of the laptop.
Our
So,
bass player
I mean,
MacBook Pro.
let me
The
let me
fifth
tell you a
guy's got
story.
fifth
So
guy's got most complex
I don't
drummer.
know if I've told this story, this particular story before, but in like back in 2012 when we were Tensions was recording in the US, um, the studio that we went to do the drums, there was a couple of parts in the tracks. And look, massive shout out to Kyle from Tensions Arise, amazing drummer. Worked his ass off in the lead up to going to America to be able to play properly, to click tracks and play much more cleanly and precisely. And he's even gone so much further. He's a fucking incredible drummer.
He is. He's very good.
And but there was a couple of parts for that EP where we're in there and they just weren't coming through. They just weren't clean enough for the studio, right?
Yeah.
So, again, this gets down to to studio cheating, right? Like he went, all right, can you play me those parts? Just don't play the cymbals.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he literally just took all the cymbal hits out, and it took him a couple of goes to get the swing of like not hitting the cymbals because
Yeah.
he's just so used to muscle memory and where they're going. But once he got the hang of that, everything else, like, yep, super tight, all good there, bang, bang, bang. Then they went back through and was like, all right, now do just the cymbal parts for me.
Right.
And like,
That's insane though, because like, oh god, I couldn't even imagine like dealing with the phase and stuff like that on recording the mics.
Yeah.
yeah, I
Like,
mean,
recording or doing all that.
it was obviously like they knew that there was going to be certain challenges in doing that, and it was just those very specific parts.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right.
But
Yeah.
like, obviously, because when on just the drum tracks, there's not going to be any cymbal wash on those because he's not hitting any of the cymbals, and on like everywhere where they like it came out sounding incredible at the end of the day, right? The way he worked his magic on it came out fucking incredible. So, but yeah, I think look, it's just the ability to like you say, look, yeah, bands that don't want to do that, cool, not a problem. You don't have to. That's perfectly fine. But that doesn't mean that it's any less legitimate to cheat. Like I said, you do what you need to do in the studio to get the sound that you want to get. That's the only thing that matters.
Yep.
As long as you're not breaking any laws, go for do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Breaking the laws of music and metal.
Well, and I think just so many people forget that kind of stuff's been going on for literally like decades, like 50, as long as recorded music's been around, people have been cheating to get the sounds that they want.
Yeah,
like
100%.
To be fair, when I was watching that Queen movie, the Queen biopic or whatever it was, and when they were in the studio recording Bohemian Rhapsody, that was my favorite part of the movie because I'm like, I've never seen anyone record from that time.
Bro,
So I'm like,
I've got
so interested. I was so
I've got a multi-track.
to see the way they cut it and the way he like had all the reels going. He cut all the I'm like, so he
I have the multi-track sessions I have the multi-track sessions from that, and it's got like 40 layers of vocals on there. It's just like 40 layers of different vocal takes and harmonies and layers and everything and little bits here and there in there.
It was just cut and paste,
wild
but
shit.
he had to do it with big things, not with a mouse and a keyboard.
Well, like the tape, the loop in Money by Pink Floyd, that really long like change coins money loop. They fucking the loop machine that they were trying to run the tape for was not big enough to do a loop of that length. So they literally got two machines, physically put them apart, and ran the tape from one machine to the other, like the loop tape from one machine to the other, to get the loop that long so that it could work. Like
it's all the same shit.
Thinking outside the box, outside the box in the studio is how iconic shit gets made. Breaking the rules in the studio and doing stuff that you're not supposed to do, or doing stuff in a unique way, is how iconic shit is made. And people just, far too many people are, again, like, it's their right to do it if they don't, like, if they want to have this, like, sense of purity about it and be like, yep, we just went in and we did it all in one take and everyone played, this is the take where everyone was playing and at the same time, and you want to do it that way, cool, respect to you on that, that's how you want to do it, that's definitely an artistic choice. It doesn't invalidate the way other people want to approach this stuff, and I think that different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah.
Certain styles of music that absolutely works best for. I know a lot of country music stuff. They like to have everyone recording together in the same room and do that kind of setup. But metal especially, I think, has moved for that very modern sound, has moved away from a lot of that style because there's a certain precision in the playing and the production and the recording of modern metal that
and the fucking
necessitates
downtuning. Jesus Christ! Could you imagine if
again,
it just sound like mud? If you tried to record the new stuff, it just be inaudible. Probably pick up crash from hertz that it's never heard before or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not quite sure how much further down the down tuning wars can go, but
I want to shit myself in a mosh pit. I'm saying
it's okay.
now.
Valiada and
someone to
Humanity's
make
Laugh Breath have beaten that one already.
The day my bout,
Well,
like the day I'm standing there and an opening note hits so low that I'll shit myself in a mosh pit, I'll leave. I'll just go done.
just stand in front of the
Round
speakers at a
note out.
Chimera
Oh.
concert, mate. Like when they did the bass drop
I
on there.
did that.
What was
I did
that band you
stupid
mentioned
making
though? What was?
I said I think Viliata and Humanity's Last Breath so have already beaten or won in the down tuning wars.
Yeah. All right. Now I gotta go and check this out. I gotta go.
One of I would recommend if you want to hear like bridge cables in action, listen to Labyrinthian by Humanity's Last Breath.
That's the first one that came up. Hold up.
Yeah, go. It's like you just like the fucking. It's just Buster. He's just a menace.
I think there is a point where, like, I
That's a
remember
pioneer
back
the
in the
way
day,
metal too. I think.
Eddie sent me a song where it was so low tuned. I was like, that's not even heavy anymore. That's just like noise.
Well, it's like, have you seen the video of? I can't remember exactly. I think it might have been Rob Scallon, and they did like the heaviest breakdown ever, and they basically did a one BPW, 1 beat per week, and they did like you literally was just like, "Bah!" And then the next week on the same day, the next video was like the next note in the fucking breakdown and shit. And then for the vocals, they just went to a fucking sink and ran the water going down the fucking drain and recorded that and then pitched it down so that it was a really low, like guttural
Oh yeah, I
sound.
think I've seen that. Yeah.
I'm like, you know,
I
there's
have seen his
It's a
thing where he
meme
like,
now. It's literally down tuning is a meme now. Like
oh, it always
Yeah.
has been. Like, you know, people like Stevie T and
yeah.
those guys were memeing like, you know, gent guitars 10 years from now are going to have 37 strings and all this stuff. And
oh yeah.
yeah, but no, I think it's gotten to a point where I think it's just sort of the aesthetic of modern music. Like, I mean, you look at Sleep Token, they're generally a super melodic band, but they tune in drop C1. So, you know, it just, I think it's just a very modern sound to have because
Yeah. And like, here's the thing: you got so many bands that, like, Lamb of God's first few albums were in drop D, but they were so, like you listen to it and you're like, no way is that only
Yeah,
drop D.
I was about to say,
But
no
it was,
way.
but it absolutely was.
I don't believe you.
And you know, but like if we want to talk about how heavy you can go, right? Like I'll go to bloody like Kalium strings or whatever, and I'll be like, right, what's the heaviest fucking strings they can do on there? Let's see, heaviest strings that Kalium can do. Wound. Like I think I've seen him go to
I like that called bridge cables in action.
okay, so the heaviest,
Yeah.
the
It
heaviest
just sounds like it at the end of Labyrinthian. Just listen to it. It sounds like bridge cables.
the heaviest bass string I can find on Kalium strings right now is a 266.
That's pretty thick.
Which
That's
is
pretty
like,
very thick. That's
I
like,
don't know how that compares to the the low notes on a piano, but
oh, it's probably down there.
that's like disgusting. I think the heaviest I've ever played was a 170 something.
Yeah. Well, the lowest note humans can hear is if you tuned in drop E, whatever the bass is in that.
Isn't it 40 hertz or something, or 44 hertz?
Something like that. So like,
when 20 hertz is theoretically the bottom, the average lowest, but it's very, very hard to even hear at 20 hertz, and most people it
I
ends
think
up
the
it does end up
lowest
being
on
around that
a
40 or
piano
50.
is like 24 or 28.
Also,
hertz, I think.
most
sounds
people
right.
won't have a speaker capable of producing that low note clearly enough for them to hear it as well.
yeah.
Like
And,
that's
like-
true.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
like
the
most
lowest on
bands
the
that
lowest-
tune to...
Yeah, the lowest on an 88 key piano is 27.5 hertz, which is A0.
You're right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, most bands that tune below drop E these days have the bass in the same register as guitar.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
more of like a, what is it called, frequency thing that the bass is there.
Well, isn't that what Meshuggah do? Like, because they're in F normally, doesn't their bass player actually tune up to be in the same register as the guitar?
I don't know, but I would assume, yeah. Our bass is still in the audible range because we're a semitone above the lowest note humans can hear until we drop. So when we pitch drop to C,
Yeah.
The
we
bass is the same.
yeah, the bass is in the same pitch because
Yeah,
lower than
Jeez,
that,
man,
you're just
the
going to
amount
get
of
mud.
the amount of thought that you guys put into it, just from a just the whole thing. This new song is fucking fire.
But yeah,
Thanks,
getting
man.
back to that song, it really is like it's amazing. It's if you know, it's the kind of shit where people will if people say, "Hey, like who should we listen to?" Oh, that's the I'll be like, "Yeah, fucking go and
Yeah,
listen to
thanks, man.
Ghost Complex. Go and listen to Psychotic because it's just
Hey, I
absolute
told you it
like,
was a Kill Everyone
great
song, didn't I?
You
Oh
absolutely
man,
did.
you weren't
You
lying.
absolutely did. And look, I had to listen to that new North Lane one. I still think you guys have got him beat.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's not even a contest. North Lane.
Oh, what?
You know,
So
Lane.
at the moment, for me, at my very current juncture in my music listening to, you guys are all over the new North Lane stuff. So, who do you guys any day at the moment?
Absolutely wild. Well, look, let's dive in. Let's have Ollie do these
I'm
these
keen for
segments.
this.
Shall we?
Do you want us?
The quick
Do
question
you,
quarter.
do you want us to do the fun facts about Ollie since Rowan and I did each other last time?
I think we'll see. We'll see how
Maybe
we go.
let him do a fun fact.
Let him-
a
No,
couple fun
I
facts.
will, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of what I would say.
If let's Kyle hit the button and then we'll
Yep.
jump into the thing.
That you had
Alright.
you
Quick
could
question
you do,
quarter.
you want you could do so you
Yeah.
All right, so now it is time for the quick questions quarter, spelt with Q's,
Two
not
squares
K's,
over.
because we don't roll like that. And
Oh no!
now, so basically, Ollie, so I don't know if you watched the last episode or you've seen any of our previous episodes, but quick question quarter is we're just going to ask a bunch of questions to get to know you a little bit better on a musical level. And they start out really, really easy. They get a bit more involved later on. But let's just start it off with the first one, which is what was the first instrument that you ever learned to play?
That was guitar. Just acoustic. I started off actually doing a bunch of classical and jazz guitar.
Mhm.
So I started playing that in year 2. So I don't know how long ago that was, a hot minute.
Awesome.
And then started playing drums when I started high school, so 2014, I think.
Awesome.
And then since then it's been drums for some reason.
So I hate that so much. You started high school in 2014, and that was 10 years after I finished high school.
I was just thinking that
No,
exact same thing.
2014's the year
This
I
gray's
finished high
coming
school.
in. This gray's coming in. All right, what was the first album that you purchased?
First album I purchased was it was Running on Air by Bliss and Esso.
Really?
Nice.
That's a
Yeah,
first.
That's
yeah.
interesting.
That's a first.
Yeah,
Cool.
very different to what I do now, but at the time
Just versatility, mate. You just got a
it
range
was
of
my
influences.
shit.
That's
Yeah,
all, man.
totally.
First live concert you attended?
First live show I went to was when was it? It was Night Lavelle, who's a Canadian rapper, at the Metro in 20 I want to say 2016, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or,
Awesome.
the Wiggles when I was like,
No, we don't count.
No, we don't count them, man. We don't count them.
You went to the Wiggles when you were younger?
I went to the
only way
Wiggles when I was younger.
The only way the
didn't.
Wiggles would count as your first show is if you went to one of their 18 plus shows as your first show.
oh man, that would
that
be
would count.
wild.
Yeah, really jelly. I didn't get to go to any of those. All right, if you could pick one,
I feel like
big
the
band-
novelty of it would wear off relatively quickly.
I wouldn't want to go and see like a whole bunch of their shows, but to go to a show and have all the old songs and everything in the OG lineup, and
Maybe.
just with everyone
Yeah.
singing along with it, just as a one-time thing, I think it'd be really
Yeah.
cool.
Circle Pit to Fruit Salad. would be
Yeah,
Oh
great.
yeah, Well, people don't do circle pits anymore, right? They row. That's they row.
Oh yeah.
Man,
Man, I'm telling
yeah.
you, what a good
Circle
segue
pits all the
into
way.
what a good segue into a circle pit fruit salad. Let's make a fruit salad of this bitch.
Yeah.
Mix it up. Mix it up.
Um, sorry, I missed. What's an instrument you've always wanted to learn but haven't yet?
Ooh, cello.
Ooh, that's a
Good
good
shout.
one.
Didn't see that one coming.
bass. Yeah.
It's a good shout. It's a good shout. They're challenging. They're really fucking challenging.
Yeah.
They sound
I feel
cool.
like
Yeah.
Yeah,
They do.
yeah. Cello especially is like
Such a good
fucking
instrument.
badass. All right, if you could pick one big band or artist to open a show for, now there's basically no rules with this, right? It's living or dead, active or not, whatever time in their career that you would pick. If you could pick one big band or artist to open a show for, who would it be?
Ooh,
The Wiggles.
Yeah.
I'd be mad.
But back when it was the OG lineup
Yeah.
back in the day, so you're playing to like
totally.
a bunch of like 5-year-olds and shit.
Yeah, well, we do
yeah.
anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I'd probably say, ooh, either got three: Led Zepp, The Doors, or Jimi Hendrix.
Wow,
Nice.
I would not
Classics.
expect that.
Some
I did
classics
not
there.
expect. Those are awesome picks, by the way. But I
Classics
did not
there.
expect that.
And you'd be able to get the good acid, so
Oh.
yeah, be
Exactly. That's it.
Attention, all festival goers! Nobody take the brown acid.
Maybe I'll even add Santana on that just to make sure I
Ooh,
get the
Carlos
really good.
Santana.
Dude, yeah, that would be sick.
That would be so mad. No, didn't he
I've
play a
just tell you
Woodstock?
that-
Didn't he play a Woodstock high on acid?
the genre
Yeah.
the genre whiplash there would be like it'd almost be like going from I Prevail to Devo to Limp Bizkit. I mean, who would
Who would
who would
organise
book
such a
that?
thing?
Who would organize such a thing? I have
Genius. A genius.
Except I Prevail.
Although I'll tell you what, it'd be weird seeing like the Doors, Jimi Hendrix, and then Ghost Complex on an acid trip. I don't know where that journey would take you, because the first two would be all right. You'd be pretty mellow, you'd be pretty cool, and then Ghost Complex would come on, and then chances are that
you would see the visualizer. You would it would be
fifth
like
gate
you
of
were in
hell
that
would open up.
visualizer in space with the black hole and shit.
Yeah, some people just
The
wigging
void.
out. Play really.
Just have mad strobe lights going.
Who is an artist or a band that you're listening to right now that you think is seriously underrated and deserves more attention?
Oh shit. At the moment, I wouldn't. I don't know if they're underrated, but I'd say Deficit. Totally.
Yeah, definitely is good. Very good.
Yeah, good band.
And probably Deceits. They're like a post-punk band from San Francisco, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Very like, I don't know, Talking Heads type of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon those would probably be my two at the moment.
Awesome. Right. Okay, here we go. So what is something that people may be surprised to learn about you? Now, as mentioned, if you can't pick one about yourself, I'm sure that the boys will be more than happy.
You already told us you're playing 8 bands.
Uh,
Although you're a decent drummer, so that's not actually that surprising.
Shit. This one's stumping me. Maybe that. Oh shit. Bro, I'm just like a real big nerd. Like, into like Rubik's cubes, yo-yos, building just random shit. Really.
What key is it in?
Asking what key songs are in, apparently.
Yeah, let me tune my drums to that key, right?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, no. So I don't even know what had happened. So I think Rowan changed my name in the group chat to like, what key is this in, with like the nerd emoji. And I didn't see it when it first got changed. And then I checked all the nicknames in the chat, and I saw my name, and I was so pissed when I saw that.
It's because like, you send like a demo of anything, or like he's like, oh, I'm just gonna learn this song, and then like the next thing we say is like, hey guys, what key is this song in? I'm just like, I don't know, man. Whatever sounds cool, I guess.
Just go to Google, man. There's literally websites that's like, hey, if I can, well, I'm sure there's websites where you can upload it and it'll analyze it and tell you what key it's in and shit.
There are, but most of it's release stuff.
That's boring.
Anyway.
All right. So
You
now
know
the
what key
last
it's in?
question.
Drums. The key is in drums. Play that.
So I don't think we had this question in there. I think this was a new one since we had you guys on.
Shit.
So
Okay.
this one will go out to all of you. What is your worst music sin? Confession time, baby. What is your worst music sin?
Oh, I got an easy one. I mute automate live, so I don't have to worry about muting my guitar.
See, that's just working smarter, not harder.
I'm shameless. I don't give a fuck, to be quite honest. I use
having a good time?
do use a
Doesn't sound
gate.
good. Mission accomplished.
I do use like a tight gate in parts that I can't like feasibly mute automate because it doesn't work. But like most of the time, that's why like if I'm there live and I'm like I can just play something, stop and turn around, tune, and then you don't hear anything because it just mutes.
Good. Smart. More people should do that.
Exactly.
If you've got the setup to do it, I don't see a reason not to.
Yeah, digital setups, man. Just fuck it.
Yeah, you've been reformed by the Reverend Raph. You are not a sinner anymore.
You're not a
You've
sinner.
been absolved of your sins.
That's it.
Hell yeah.
That's what it, that's 20 Let There Be Rocks and
Yeah. And 5 Hail Satans.
I'd say my probably music sin, especially as a drummer, is taking like cymbal felts and the sleeves and stuff like that.
You accidentally take them.
Accidentally.
Comes around thing. Okay, people take mine, I take theirs. So I feel like that's
eye for an eye, baby.
all I can
journey
see
of a
is
cymbal felt.
George Costanza taking umbrellas.
Yeah.
Nobody buys umbrellas. Everyone just shares them, and you just get to take.
Take whatever. Yeah.
Also,
True.
Adele. I love Adele. I don't know if that's a sin.
That's not a sin.
That's a sin.
In a
No, it'd be a sin if it was
heavy
Taylor Swift.
Maybe it's like guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. As long as you can acknowledge that Adele had the wrong perspective on Hello the whole time. She's mad. She's mad that she fucked up in the Listen to the lyrics. She fucked up in the relationship. The other person broke up with her, and then she's now getting mad and upset that the other person won't let her back in their life.
Honestly, Adele's so based after hearing that.
You go in there and it's like, yeah, okay. It's like you listen to the lyrics and it's like she fucked up. Like she's the one that fucked up. The other person left her because of it, and now she's upset that they won't open up and let her back. Try and get back to thing. And I'm like, cool. Like, what do you? Sounds like you got what you deserved. Like,
That's
they
why
don't owe you back in the life. Anyway,
That's why it's so big because every really oh god.
No.
Most of you women have done that out there. You all know you have.
Ah, no, cancelled. All right, Jackson, your turn.
That was red hot.
I'm married.
on,
That's
Jack.
cool.
All right.
Come at me.
I got a real stupid one.
It's all right.
There we go.
I once blew my voice out from doing Watto from Star Wars impression too much.
Is that a sin though?
No, it is because
I
you're
couldn't
not
really
meant to be
come up with
doing-
anything.
You're not meant to.
Did
be
it
throwing
limit your
voice
ability
like
to
that.
perform?
Hey?
Did it
know
impact
it's
your
a
ability to
sin.
perform for
Yes,
a
it
show
did.
at all? Oh,
Yes,
there you
it
go.
did.
Okay. So you did some stupid shit, blew out your voice, and then I'll
And then
count that.
yeah, no,
Blaze it
it's because
like
our
that,
old guitarist Lucas loves it when I do the impression, and so he kept being like, "Yeah, do it again," and then I feel like it was a show we played with Broken Earth. It was the Burdekin, and I got halfway set, and I was like, my screams are just not coming out the way they should be. And I realized it wasn't until I did the impression to my vocal teacher. He was like, "Don't do that. That's gonna fuck up your voice." And I was like, "Oh, that's what it was."
Naughty.
All right. There you go. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on then to everyone's favorite segment.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit it. Let's hit it.
Hit it. Hit it.
Come on, if you want to fight, come on then.
Get in the
Are
bin.
you enjoying the weather there, mate? What? Are you enjoying the weather there?
We're back.
All right, we're back. It is time for Get in the Bin. That's what be like a game show.
Oh,
segment.
yeah.
Which we did. I think next time we change the cutaways, we'll have to go with that. Make it like some Wheel of Fortune shit, you know.
Yeah, just so I can hit a button and doesn't have to cut away.
Yeah,
Can I put
yeah.
Rowan in the bin? Is that okay?
No, because he writes amazing songs. You kind of need him.
So, Ollie, so this segment
I've written
is
some good ones.
Being a nerd. I'm sure you are very familiar with with that fucking thing right there, the Infinity Gauntlet and all that good shit. So basically, this segment is if you could just be an all-powerful being and just snap
Pick
your fingers,
Thanos.
like Thanos when he's got the gauntlet, and you could just eliminate 3 things from the music business, music scene. What would they be and why?
Oh shit!
They can
Don't
be
say
big,
drums.
They can be big or small. They can be, something
People,
that's just very
punters.
personal annoyance to you, or broader things that if you're feeling very, what's the word I'm looking for, magnanimous, you could help the entire music industry as a whole by getting
the
rid of
world.
something you think, or you could just be like, nah, I want this band to fuck off. I want this musician to go away, and I want this venue to close. It's entirely up to you,
Man,
but
okay,
you do need to be able to justify them.
okay. So, first one, I think, would be managers over the age of 40.
Ooh,
As
That's
in
interesting
venue
one.
managers?
Sorry?
As in venue managers or band managers?
Mainly band managers. Maybe it goes into venue managers as well, but from what I was coming from, I'd say just band managers. I feel they are like it's very pick and choosy, but I feel like most of them are just a bit too far out of whatever scenes they're trying to manage and adjust. Obviously, they're trying to make calls from a financial perspective, really, because it goes into their pockets at the end of the day. But I think more than less, they're just making really shit calls for mainly, I guess, like young, impressionable bands that overall just aren't best from a career
So
perspective.
they're out of touch with the way things.
I
Yeah,
can
they're
back
out of
this up.
They aren't hip with the kids.
Exactly.
Exactly.
No, okay.
Hip
So
with
here's
the
a
new jive.
here's
Yeah,
a
exactly.
here's a funny story on that note,
It's pretty funny. I laughed.
because Rowan knows this story well. I don't think he's actually ever heard this, but on what Ollie is saying, I think is very based, because here's one of the first pieces of advice from this guy who wanted to manage us. I can't remember his name. It was something Browning. This guy had apparently worked with In Excess before, so he was like 50 something. And my friend's dad really wanted to hear our new EP, which at the time was Dark Matter, because I want to send it to my guys in the music industry, because he used to run a record shop called Utopia Records. And so I was like, sure. So I sent it to him, and this manager, I can't remember, something Browning, got back to me, and he said, and this is the worst advice I've ever gotten in my life. He said, because I sent him with the titles and everything, it's Ghost Complex, EP is called Dark Matter, and so he said, don't release an EP, don't release singles, release an album, a full-length album. He said in brackets at least 11 songs, all as one package, because that's how most people experience music. And
What
then he
year
said,
was
and
this?
don't this was this
Couple
would have
years.
been 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
And
thought you. I
he
thought,
said,
The trend was already going towards individual songs and
yeah,
waterfall releases. By then.
and singles had been a thing for 10 years
30
plus.
years.
And he said, don't call it Ghost Complex, call it the Jackson Kingsmill Band.
Oh yeah.
And,
No, that guy was taking the piss, bro. That
and
guy.
well, that's what I thought. And then he was like, I'd love to have a call with you guys. And I messaged back my mate's dad. I was like, is this guy fucking serious? And he's like, yeah, no, trust me, he's managed some big bands bands in the past. I'm like, maybe he has, but this is the single worst advice I've ever gotten in my life. And every single person I've spoken to in the music industry has said that this is basically like going anything along these lines is career suicide. So yeah, I think like people really need to be in touch and people really need to be keeping up, because the music industry has changed so much in just the past 5 years. So I think Ollie hit the nail on the head. I don't know if killing all music producers above the age of 40 is the way to go.
Managers.
But
He just said they
managers, yeah,
shouldn't
sorry.
be. He didn't say kill them. I don't think.
No,
No,
Stay
Ollie
in your
definitely.
What's your number 2 to put in the bin?
Right. Venue merge phase.
Oh, merch cuts, yeah.
Don't let me get started.
Get 'em out. Get 'em
Don't
out.
let me get started.
I don't even know if I need to justify that, but it's
Yeah.
just something that needs to go. It's
I mean,
the venue's making enough. They're selling
yeah. I mean,
thousands of dollars
Live
in
Nation,
food,
Live
drinks,
Nation
shit
did
like
switch
that.
their policy on this, and they
Yeah.
went, no, we're stopping that in all of our venues globally, blah blah blah. But at the same time, I'm like, if you cared that much about it, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. You only did it because there was growing pressure.
That was
And
with
it was sort of the status quo.
Willie Nelson thing, wasn't it? Like the On the Road Again.
I can't even
initiative or some
remember.
shit?
There was so many bands that were just starting to push back on it, and
Yeah.
it kind of became untenable once these bands started talking about it to their fans, and fans started to get mad about it. I think it sort of shifted the conversation a little bit, but we'll I will give them credit for changing it, but I won't give them credit for too much, because they did it in the first place. They shouldn't have done it
I
in the
think
first
it
place.
first blew up when Alpha Wolf had that whole spiel during one of their shows about it. That's when I kind of first fully got
Yeah.
into it. Some Tank the Tech video about it. And he was going on about it, and contractually, signing them with venues and stuff. It's kind of very easy to gloss over. You might not even really notice it.
Yeah.
If you're reading this big ass contract and all the public liability stuff and whatever, you might not notice it, and then at the end of the show, the venue's taken
All your money.
Also, the other problem is
Krabby Patties.
a lot of the time, let's say you got a 4-band bill. 3 of those bands have been asked by the headliner to come on tour, plus maybe you've got a local support. If you say no to that contract, you can't play. So it's not even like if you gloss over it or you don't see it or you don't understand what it means. If you see that and you're like, hang on, that's wrong, then you got to
have no
kind of decide.
negotiating power.
Yeah, you kind of got to decide, okay, well, do I give up X amount of our merch fee and play the show, or do I not play the show and let down not only the other bands on the bill who have asked you to come and play, and the headliner probably paying for you to be there, but also the fans that are there to see you.
Yeah.
So you've got really little wiggle room to
And the venues are getting smaller and smaller. The venue
Oh my
numbers are getting
God.
smaller and smaller. It's almost at the stage, and I was thinking about this the other day. It's almost at the stage where if venues are going to do that, they should need to pay a fee up front for all the bands. So everyone's, if you're going to take my money, I need to be getting paid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
as I've
I'd
said-
be a bit cooler with it if I was guaranteed to get paid that night. Take your 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
I
just
mean-
and just the was it Tank the Tech? You said, Ollie. As he said in his video, it's fair if the venue is supplying people, like venue staff who are
Yes.
selling the merch for you.
Yes,
That's
small
fine.
percentage, 5 or 10% towards that, I think is reasonable if they're providing someone who
Yeah.
is selling it. But if you're expected to sell your own stuff, then
Yeah, because it's
it
bullshit.
starts to take the piss.
You've paid the fee, you've hired the venue. Sometimes they take a cut of the ticket price. I think that could be wrong. But basically, you have hired that space. What you do in that space, as long as you're, not breaking shit, is up to you. You can shoot a music video in there, you can play there, fucking whatever.
Yeah.
But the merch is yours that you are selling to your fans and making a profit off of.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, like, the venue's done that, you've done your bit to the venue. You've paid the fee. You've hired the space. That should be the extent of money exchange.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Well, that legally, I think that's all they're allowed to do. If they're offering a space for you to hire.
Oh no, they're allowed to do anything if it's in the contract, man.
If it's in the contract, yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
contracts.
It's just one of these things, It's a case of the venues are negotiating from a position of power, in that sense, especially for non-headline acts, and if that's the contract that they've given the headliners, then that's the same contract everyone else is going to get. And as you say, if you refuse to sign it, you can, you kind of lose out, which is why I think the only smart move you can do in that situation, if you are a band and don't want to lose out on merch sale money from that show, is have a QR code that links to your web store and just say, look, guys, really sorry, we don't have stuff available to buy tonight, but there's a QR code over at the merch desk. You scan that, it'll take you to the thing, and you can.
Or you can sell your merch outside the venue.
You can.
And this is something I think Alpha Wolf did, is they started selling merch from the parking lot of the venue. Because they're like, all right, we're outside the limits of where we've agreed to play.
That does run risks, I think, of
going back to that venue.
You don't
Yeah,
have,
it
you might have the
does.
venue will go, well, we're not
But
going to let you play again because you've been a smart ass
Yeah.
about our stuff.
But also
and
to
it
the
does-
it is definitely a risk, but also there's the extent of, like, as Sabian pointed out in Alpha Wolf's vlog that they put up, is like, they're like, venues don't want people to know about this. So, like, because, when Lockie from Alpha Wolf called them out for taking a 20% merch cut on stage, the venue manager tried to get the sound guy to shut off their sound and end their set. Venue managers don't want people to know this.
Lance.
So, you're not taking on Lance prank.
Yeah, you don't give a fuck.
So it's sort of a thing of, like, yes, the venue can ban you, but do they really want to make it public knowledge that they're banning bands
taking money.
from playing because they're taking the band's money and the bands aren't agreeing to that? So yes, it can happen, and obviously the venues aren't always fully transparent that that's why it happened. But you do run the risk of the band being like, all right, well, we're not going to play there again. Here's what happened, and here's why we're not playing that venue again. So it's a risk on both sides.
Every band gets on here, and I'll probably say 80, 85, maybe nearly 90%. And every time we do this get in the bin thing, that is one of the ones that comes up.
Yeah, it comes up a lot.
As it should be.
Why aren't more of you bands banding together and not playing these venues and putting them all on blast?
Well, I mean, we had, I think,
Because we're such a minority.
Nuclear
They hold all
Vision
the power.
played Wallapalooza, like that was there was a merch cut there for the venue, and we're like, look, we'll sign it, but we're just not selling our merch, and I think we had some pre-sale stuff. We tried to push, like, hey, if you're coming to this show, pre-buy your merch, blah blah blah. And then we had some stuff there to give to people who had pre-purchased, which is, again, another way you can circumvent it. But it relies on, you not getting the, hey, I've just seen you guys for the first time tonight, and I'm going to go and buy a shirt because I really like it. So it's there's a lot of stuff wrong with it. And like I said, this is why I said don't get me started, because I will just, like, this is a conversation that can go on for so fucking long. Right. So we had managers over 40 and venues taking a merch cut. What's your number 3?
Last one, I'd say, just with the amount of shows and stuff that I play and deal with is shows that don't provide guarantees. If they provide percentages, it's a total shit show, really, because you know, let's say you're playing a show with someone decently large,
Ghost complex.
yeah, baby,
Playing a show with
and
ourselves.
That's right.
and you get offered, let's say it's a 4-band bill. It all gets split like, I don't know, 25% each. It's literally all just dependent on the amount of tickets sold.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Okay. That's kind of part of what shows should be. If you sell it out, you get paid more. Have a shit like that. But if you go in there without at least a guarantee, then it really puts all the expenses that you've had going into it, whether that's being, if it's a out of city show, paying for rehearsals, accommodation, petrol, stuff like that. If even at the bare minimum, if you can't get guaranteed that you'll be reimbursed for that, it's just totally not worth it. Like with, proper bands, proper musicians who do this as their livelihood, then if you're playing shows like that and you're getting peanuts for it, then it's just absolutely not worth it. And you could do a kind of worse, so to say, show somewhere that's closer in the city, but it at least guarantees that you'll get paid, like, I don't know, $350, $400 or something like that, and everyone can get like $100 out of it. Whereas, you get asked to go play in Newcastle and get a percentage. The show flops. You sell like 30 tickets, and let's say you get 25% of that. You could maybe make like $100 total as a band.
And also, so many tickets to these smaller shows go from like $10 to $15. Like I played a show in 2017 where we sold a decent amount of tickets. I don't know how many. The room was relatively full. I literally had the venue manager come up to me afterwards and be like, "Here's your cut. And then handed me two $2 coins. Like it's because also like Ollie's being generous in saying like each band on a 4-band bill gets 25%. Reality is headline is going to get paid the most. Main spot's going to get paid more than that. Or sorry, a bit under
Well, you
that.
get paid after the venue gets paid, though. It's like kind of
Yeah,
like
and
ticket
then-
sales,
Yeah,
and then
venue
after
cut,
venue's
and then
paid.
Yeah, and then that also gets split between sound, lighting,
Yep.
anyone else who's involved, and crew members, band crew members. Like if you've got people selling merch or tour managing or doing sound or lighting, it gets split between that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And photographers.
Yeah. And at least if
Yeah.
and at least if you're getting a guarantee, you can sort of factor in how worth it is to hire your own sound guy, hire a photographer. Like for
Yeah.
example, the show we just got booked for, which we're playing next weekend, we're getting a pretty big guarantee for it. At least for our standards, we're getting. I won't say how much, just because money's a bit of a hot topic, but we were able to look at that and go, oh, okay, cool. So we can probably afford to, we'll put most of it into PR for our next single, but we can afford to hire a photographer for $100 or something. So we'll do that. And we probably would have hired a sound person as well if it was a venue that was a bit not great with sound, but it's the Burdick and Mac is going to be doing sound, so we know the sound's going to be good. So
exactly.
if you see your guarantee, you can at least factor in how worth it will be, whether you want to fly there, whether you want to drive there, if you need to hire a photographer, any crew, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if it's a cut, you really don't know how much you're getting.
We had a great example of that was when we played 2022, I think it was. We went down to Melbourne for our first Melbourne show.
Oh,
midweek, which was ridiculously stupid, and they were trying to start like a metal Wednesday night thing. So it was us and Singe, and we got it was pretty much like a 25% cut of the ticket sales. We didn't know what the ticket sales were or anything. We spent all this money. We got down there, and I think there was and half the people that were there were pretty much people that had door spots.
Yeah,
so, like,
Yeah.
and they didn't even. We didn't end up getting paid anything because it was like fuck all, and they didn't.
And the
nothing
other
happened.
thing too is, you want to look at 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, it was $10 or $15 to get into these local shows.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, despite inflation and the cost of everything going up, people will still balk at paying more than sort of 15 or $20 for a bunch of local bands. And it's, like you start getting into the $30 range and people start to think about, they'll second guess it, where they want to go.
I think it's in their defense. I think it is also like yes, the inflation's gone up and the tickets are relatively the same price as they've always been, but also everything else is more expensive.
Yes, 100%, 100%, and your cost of living has gone up. And I'm not trying to. I hope I didn't come across the wrong way there. I'm not trying to bag on people that don't want to pay that. I'm just like, people, especially people that were going to shows 20 years ago and paying $10, $15, $20 for shows 20 years ago, now still want to pay that, even though and a lot, and so that's putting this downward pressure on ticket prices for shows, which is just making it that much harder for the bands to come out of it making even a small amount of money. I mean, that's why you see a lot of like merch prices pushing up as well. I mean, like when Tensions Arise were first selling out t-shirts, we were like, $20, and we don't want to really charge more because people don't want to, like, more than $20, and people are going to be like, I don't really want to fucking pay, and like when Skunkbone did our t-shirts, I was like, nah, 25. I don't want to charge. I want to try and keep it at 25 because that's like, but then I see bands out there, local bands out there, and they're charging $35, $40 for a t-shirt, and I'm like, charge what you want to charge, like it's your decision to make.
If people want to buy it, they'll buy it.
Exactly. And I mean, and I'm just like, and that's just from my thing of like, I'm trying to get out of the mindset of it still being, 15 years ago when that, when like $30 or $40, like that's what the international bands charge. What the fuck are you thinking? Like, but now when international bands are charging $50 or $60 for a t-shirt, 35 or 40 for a local band seems a lot more reasonable.
Well, I think the other thing about like I'm gonna say local bands shows, whatever, they're cheap as hell. I kind of think that like a lot of it is you do get what you pay for, because the bands, like, you could be the best band in the world, but unfortunately because they don't get the funding to back themselves, half the shows are just kind of just like, boring ass, like, I want to say boring. I'm being a bit harsh, because like I think a lot of our shows, like even the ones we play, I'm surprised people come watch us because I think it's quite boring to watch. But like in terms of,
don't say that.
Well, I'll lead into my point.
Ixnay on the Oring Bay.
Somewhere, don't wait. But like you can't.
Let the man cook.
You don't get enough funding to pay for like the good sound guy or someone to do lighting for you or something like that. Yeah. So, and then, because like no one shows up half the time anyway, because like you don't have anything to really give. Because like the thing is, if you look at these big bands that are charging a lot or doing a lot of like the bigger tours and stuff, obviously they've got more funding, but they have that show, like a live show. Like it's more interesting. So that's why like this weekend, even though it's an AM PM, it's our first headliner, and I've been talking with the manager there. I've got the lighting specs. I'm trying to like work on programming lights and everything like that, because like that's just what I expect from a headliner. If I want to see someone headlining, I want to see something cool. I want to see like headliner. I don't want to just see you playing like the set you did last year. Again,
yeah. He's saying like if you have the best and most tight band ever, like you got really nice music, great stage presence, and you play amazing. If you're in a really not great venue that has really shit sound and you're playing with like just static some lighting, blue and red lights going like this, it like it can still be a great show, but it's not going to be as much of an experience as if you have like you can still in a small venue, like we've played shows at the Burdekin with amazing sound and lighting, like I remember at Singer's headline, and when I went and saw that, like I was blown away at how good that show was. Like they had the lighting in sync with them, the sound was incredible, and on top of that, they are an amazing band. They performed tight, and they had amazing stage presence. It's just at these shows like
That's why I love Tomcat up here. Tomcat in the Valley, Fortitude Valley, is a great venue. They've really worked hard on their aesthetic for the venue. They've got a good sound setup. They have usually the people running sound know what they're doing, and they've got not the most spectacular lighting rig in the world, but it's enough to give the vibes.
yeah,
And
it
to be
enhances the show enough.
to be dynamic enough to enhance the show, definitely.
Yeah, because like
And
we played.
on top of that, they also generally, at least in my experience, pay a guarantee for
Fuck
the
yeah.
bands as well. So they're ticking all these boxes, and I highly recommend them as a venue up here for people.
Oh hell yeah.
You reckon?
Yeah, no, like for example, yeah, like he knows, man. He knows. Like, do you guys, Kyle? You'd probably know, the Chippo Hotel. So that venue, for example, we played there last year. Actually, that was Ollie's first show with us. Shout out Ollie. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the
And
underground.
like, for example, like Ollie fucking killed it. Rowan fucking killed it. I did okay, and the guitarist killed it. But the point is, like, we were really, really happy with that set. But like, the sound rig was so fucking busted. So many people were like, we were talking about. I was chatting with some of the other bands afterwards about like the synth layers and stuff that are under our music, and they're like, I couldn't hear shit. Like, and they like the lighting are just like static yellow lights, and so that's basically what we're saying is like, I like to think our songs are pretty well written. I like to think that we're pretty good live, but if you can't fucking hear anything, it doesn't really make the show.
Oh, it was just
that
boring to
good.
watch. Like, why would I watch it?
Yeah.
But I think that like those venues.
Mm.
Well, that's exactly the right band. 'Cause I can picture in small spaces like that, like the crappy little venues with the shittest sounds, hardcore bands pop off the hardest at those places because it's just fucking like breakdown drugs and stuff, and then the fans lap it up. Like they can be on stage, like do whatever the fuck they want. Like that would work. But like for us, having all the intricacies and stuff, if you can't hear it, then what's the point of us? Like there's not really point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do agree with what you're saying. When you said that depends on the band.
Also, it goes. Oh well, I was just gonna say, hold that thought, but like something I was speaking to Tom Milgate, who runs the Burdekin and AMPM, about is like a lot of these really shitty venues, old rock bands and stuff, and like more old school bands will tend to do better in them because they're using analog equipment. So, and like amps and cabs and stuff. So like, even if like, so at the Chipper, for example, the PA was just fucked. Like things were coming out the wrong speakers and like cables were fucked, and just the sound was muffled. It just sounded like a muddy mess. And as Rowan mentioned, we've got really intricate like drum and guitar parts that you really need clarity for. But if you're relying on stage volume and like things coming out of like, cabs and stuff where you don't have to rely on running a PA where vocals and drums are going through as well, you're gonna sound better just because you're not relying on the PA system and the room nearly as much. Whereas us who, I like to think there are quite a few more pros and cons, but us that are a full digital straight to front of house band.
Which most bands are these days.
Yeah, especially in the modern metal scene. You're relying on that PA system a lot more.
Yes.
And we're lucky in that venues like the Burdekin have really great sound systems, really great sound engineers there. But and I don't want to shit on the Chippo is a good venue, and I've heard they've since fixed their or replaced their PA system. Oh, mad. Yeah, they've
Good.
probably fixed it then. But yeah, like it wasn't just that it was a bad sister. Like it was so old. It was just decaying, and like things weren't working as they were meant to be. But like, it's a cool venue. Or at least when we played it, it was let down by its sound and lighting system, and we weren't the right band to play there because you need to be able to hear what Rowan's doing and what Ollie's doing, and all you could really hear is like some real cymbals, muddy shit going on in the key of F, and then me screaming over the top of it, like it was just yes.
I don't think I have, no. Right.
It's like an underground. It's like a basement.
That's doing it a bit of a disservice. It is a cool room. It's sort of oh okay, but it's basically a pub, and you go downstairs, and there's this sort of like basement room, and it's got a proper stage and everything. Whereas in the Chatswood Club, you literally do play under a flight of stairs, but it's just like a really low ceiling. It's not sound treated or anything. It's just like stone walls, sort of basement. And when we played there, it was February or March, and it really locks in the humidity. Boy, does it get hot down.
Yeah, it's pretty warm.
Yeah, already, man. Like Tomcat was a nightmare on Friday night. Like we had, well, I mean, we had so Tomcat is an upstairs venue, and it's like it's quite a steep flight of stairs. So I already fucking like that's the only bad thing about it is it's up a steep flight of stairs and there's no elevator or anything. So your load in and out is fucked. But it's I don't know if their aircon wasn't working or if it was just because it was just that damn hot. It was like 37 up here on Friday with feels like temperature was like 44 degrees. It was humid, like very, very high humidity.
Well, it's
And
Brisbane,
it's just Brisbane. So it's just that like gross tropical fucking vibe. And there's a couple of fans in the main area in front of the stage, which cool, they were helping a little bit. But anytime where you were out of that breeze, it was awful. Like there was just nothing. And like I was just still literally just sitting down, scrolling on my phone in between bands, and I could feel the sweat running down my back. It was just that gross. But yeah, look, all right. Well, look, we've taken up quite a lot of your time today, so let's wrap this one up. So, you said you guys were playing. So this show is going out on Thursday, so that'll be before the gig on the weekend. So you guys said you're playing at AM PM in Sydney. It's the emo night with Ghost Complex, Singe, Bury Me, and Blindsight. Fucking Bury Me, amazing show. Love those guys. And Singe, fucking awesome too. So I haven't heard Blindsight, but I should.
Blindsight, good boys. Very good boys.
I saw them last night. They were amazing, and they're good men. Yeah.
Awesome.
Good
So
man.
if you're in Sydney, and you want to check out the new song, Psychotic, you want to hear that live and get your face melted off, get down to that show. It is the 3rd of February, which is Saturday. And go and listen to the new song if you haven't already, Psychotic, on all the platforms. Go and check out our reaction video to it once you've listened to it, because we think we had a lot of fun reacting to that video and listening to it, kind of breaking down elements and analyzing them on that. And is there anything else that you guys want to plug before we wrap this one up?
I don't know.
We've in the works.
No other shows, but we got some more. We're going to be releasing more music, and we're going to have a new record for you, or EP, for you at some point soon. We've got a date for it, but I can't say that yet.
No, that's okay. We'll go and follow them on all the socials, on all the platforms.
Yeah.
So you can be first to know when that's coming out.
We're also going to be playing a new song at AMPM that's unreleased.
There you go. So
we have played before, but Come hear it again.
You've played it before, but it's not been released on platforms just yet.
Exactly.
Just ruined it, Jackson.
No, well, this is your only way to hear it early because we're still not going to be releasing it for another month or so. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's and if you like really angry songs about people fucking you over, go listen to Psychotic and go watch the video and go watch.
That was from the heart. That one was from the heart, man.
Yes,
I
it
know
was.
You can feel that. All right. Well, thank you very, very much to Jackson, Ollie, and I'm really, really sorry. It just says R conflict Rowan. Sorry, mate. I just like saw the R, and I'm just like Rodney, Ralph.
No, that's his name. It's Rodney.
Yeah,
Rodney, yeah.
Yeah, Rowan's his artist name. A bit
Yeah,
more,
Rowan's the artist name.
bit more windswept and interesting, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, true.
All right.
You're right.
Well, thank you very much, boys, for joining us today. Thank you
you for having us.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you to you guys who are watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe down there, or if you hated it, give it a downvote. If you've got a band that you think we should interview or react to, put it down in there in the comments. Otherwise, we will catch you in the next one. Peace out, guys.